Welcome to this video on interactive dashboards with Excel. My name is Ian Littlejohn. I'm from Data Insight Training. I'm an international trainer, data analyst, and also consultant. So in this video, what I'm looking to do is actually show you how easily you can use Excel pivot tables and pivot charts and put them together into an interactive dashboard using Excel. Now, normally I find when people put dashboards together, they use very complex formulas, they use a lot of developer tools or even macros, and sometimes even VBA to make this happen. But you'll see in this video, we don't use any of that. It's all drag and drop and very simple to do. So hopefully you're going to find some really fascinating tools that you can use and techniques that you can use in your Excel with this video. In this video, we're going to be looking at how we can create an interactive Excel dashboard. Okay, so this is the final product. This is what we're going to produce in the video. So if you see over here, I've got over here some of my key metrics. I'm going to be looking at creating some total sales, total profit, my average sales amount, average profit amount, and a number of transactions. Over here, I have a top 10 table. So this is showing me my top 10 customers by total sales and total profit and the number of transactions. At the moment, this is sorted by my total sales. So I'm seeing it from highest to lowest in my total sales. We've also got a trend graph over here showing me my sales by year and quarter and a profit by customer segment column graph over here. Now what we're looking to do is actually when we click on a customer state over here, all of these must change now to show the key information for that customer state. So if I click on Alabama, you'll see straight away we get our key metrics, we get the total sales, total profit, number of transactions, and so on for that state. We've also now got the top 10 customers for that state, and we've got the sales by year and quarter and the profit by customer segment. So you'll see that as I select my different customer states over here, that it's actually changing both of these tables and both of these graphs over here. So that's what we're going to be creating in this video. So let's get cracking. Let's have a look at how we create this. So we're going to start with a spreadsheet of Excel data, something probably most of you are used to working with. So you can see this in the table format over here. I have my different order IDs, different order dates, order priorities, sales and profit figures, different ship modes, customer names, customer states, regions, even customer segments. So there's a lot of information in this spreadsheet that we're working with. So the first step of wanting to create my dashboard is I'm going to create a first sheet. And on there, I'm going to start with my key metrics. So I want to know what is my total sales, my total profit, my average sales, my average profit, and what is my number of transactions. Okay, so the first step in this is I'm going to insert a pivot table. And you're going to see that creating the interactive dashboards, it's really important to use pivot tables to be able to allow us to create this with a minimal amount of effort. So if we don't want to use complex formulas or use macros or other complex items, then pivot tables are really the way to go. So I'm going to create this in a new worksheet, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to call this sheet dashboard. So we have a place to start creating our dashboard from. So you can see I've got my pivot table over there. I'm just going to change the sort order of my fields. You can see it goes off the screen a little bit, but if you click on this setting over here, you can say sort A to Z, and we've now got our fields in the sorted order. So I'm going to start off by using my sales figure, and I'm going to just drag that down into my values. Then I want to know what is my total profit, so I'm also going to drag that down. Then I want to know what my average sales figure is and my average profit. So you see I'm just dragging these fields down and it creates a new version of each of these. I'm going to see just now how we configure these so we can get the totals and the averages. Also, I want to have the number of transactions. So what I'm going to use for this field is actually my order ID. So I'm going to drag my order ID down, and we can see now that we've got these in our pivot table and they're all going across. However, I actually prefer to see my values going down in my rows. So I'm going to click on my values over here, drag it into my rows, and that's looking better now. Okay, so now we're going to start configuring this and formatting it. So instead of even calling this values, I'm actually going to call this key metrics. So let's just change that to say key metrics at the top. You can see I'm just typing over that. Okay, with my sum of sales at the moment, it's got a lot of decimals, doesn't look very nice. So I'm going to right click, choose number formatting. I'm going to set decimal places 0 and use thousand separator. So now I have it nicely formatted. And I could do this for each of the fields. However, in this case, it's going to be easier for me to actually say format cells. So I just want to format all these cells. I'm going to say number, 0 decimal places, use thousand separator. And there we go. We've now got that all formatted. Okay, so we've got sum of sales, sum of profit. That's great. That's what I wanted to see for the total sales, total profit. However, on this sum of sales, we actually wanted to see it as an average. So I'm going to right click on this. I'm going to choose my average over here. And there you can see I get my average of my sales value. Now your average is just your total divided by the number of transactions. Again, in this case as well, I want to see the average of the profit. So I'm going to change my method of aggregation, right click on it, summarize values by, and now I've got the average profit for each of the transactions. Now you can see over here, it's got the sum of the order ID. I don't want the sum. I actually want it to do a count. It must count the number of order transactions. So I'm going to choose count over here, and then it will tell me the number of transactions. So I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so we can see this more clearly. Just take these out a bit. Now, if you want to keep your column widths the same and you don't want them to change, it's a good idea to click on your pivot table options over here. And in here, we're going to say auto fit our column widths on update. So we're going to take that off. So then that would keep my table in the same size. Okay, the last step over here is we're just going to change the naming. So again, we're going to type over this and we're going to say total sales. I'm going to say total profit. I'm going to say average sales. And we're going to say average profit, and we're going to call this number of transactions. Okay, so that's created now my table of my key metrics, which is really my first part of it. I see down here, it's just changed the sheet name, so we'll just correct that quickly, keep it as dashboard. Okay, so that's created our first key metric table. The next part of the dashboard that I'm going to create is a trend graph, and the trend graph is going to show me my sales by year and quarter. So we're going to go back to our data over here. I'm going to go back to the sheet of data, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert a new pivot table, and we're going to also put that into a new worksheet over here. So I'm going to click OK, and I'm going to click on my sheet name, and I'm going to label this sheet as year and quarter. I'm going to see a little bit later why that's important, because we need to be able to reference back to this pivot table. Okay, for now we've got our order date, so I can use my order date in my rows. I can use my sales in my values. Again, I can just number format this, and we'll use number, again 0 decimal places, use 1000 separator. And you'll see now currently I've got it as year. So I'm going to right click on this and I'm going to change my grouping for this to years and quarters. So I'm going to use years and quarters for my grouping. And there we go. Now we got our different sales by our years and quarters, all being shown in the pivot table. Now what we want here is actually a trend graph. So we're going to be using our pivot chart, and we're going to use our line chart. I'm going to click OK. And you can see now that I've got a nice little line chart. I can make a couple of changes, maybe delete my legend. Let's give this a title so we know what it is. So we're going to say sales by year and quarter. Okay, we've also got these buttons over here, not really useful. So we're going to go to the Analyze button, go to Field Buttons, and there we got our nice little trend graph. So very easy. And obviously you could spend a little bit more time formatting this and changing styles if you wanted to, the different styles, the different colors and things. But we're not going to worry about that. What we want to do is we actually want to move this graph now into our dashboard. So we're going to use this Move Chart option. So this is under my Pivot Chart Tools under Design over here. And we're going to say now we want to move this as an object in our dashboard. So we're going to say it's an object in our dashboard. I'm going to click OK on this. And you can see now it's been added into my dashboard. Okay, didn't mean to move that part. So we want to move the whole thing just out of the way over here. So for now, we're going to keep this, maybe make it a little bit smaller. But this creates my trend graph now that I can add into my dashboard. Okay, so far now I have my key metrics and I've got a trend graph that are both sitting in my dashboard sheet at the moment. The next part we're going to be creating is our top 10 customers. So this is going to be a table of data. So again, we're going to go back to our actual sales data over here, and I'm going to insert a new pivot table. But in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to say I want to put this into the existing worksheet, and we're going to put it straight into the dashboard. So I'm going to click on the location over here, go to my dashboard. I'm going to select a cell. Let's say we want to place it over here, and you can see my location has been updated. So we're going to click OK on this. And the new pivot table is now being created there. Okay, so what we want to do with this one is we're going to use our customer name, and let's put our customer segment, customer name. We want our sales figure, we want our profit figure, and we want our number of transactions, which we're going to use our order ID again. So we're going to drag those down into the values. Okay, so in our sum of sales over here, we're going to say, again, number format this, and do the same for profit, and we'll do the same for order ID as well. Okay, so we can see the order ID is summed up automatically again. So we're just going to create this as a count. So we've seen how to do this. You just create your summarized values by, and we're going to say that we want to now count the number of orders. So by each customer now we've got the sales, we've got the profit, and we've got the number of transactions. However, what we want to see is the top 10. So when I go to my filters over here, my value filters, we've got a really useful option called the top 10 option. So when we click on the top 10, you can see the top 10 items by sum of sales over here. So that looks good. Click OK. And it's now showing me my top 10 customers. However, you'll notice that the sort order is actually by the customer name. And that's not really the way I want it. So let's change our sum of sales over here. And we're going to say sort largest to smallest. So that's looking good now. So I've actually got my different customers, and it's sorted by my sum of sales. And we can make this a little bit bigger there. So it goes underneath. And we've got the sum of profit, the number of transactions. Quite a bit of useful information now that we're building up into our dashboard. And again, we don't want this to move and to change around. So we're going to go to our pivot table options. And we're going to say auto fit column width on update. We're going to turn that off so that we know that these column sizes will stay the same. So our dashboard is growing nicely now. We've got our key metrics. We've got our top 10 customers by sales. We've got our sales by year and quarter. We're going to add another chart here. We're going to add a column chart. And what we want to show is our profit by customer segment. So that's going to come down into this space over here. Now again, what we're going to do is we're going to create a new sheet over here. And you're going to see that the trick to the fact of getting our trend graphs to be able to show or column charts to show is that we need the pivot table to be on a different sheet. Because the pivot table is required to give the data to the pivot chart to be able to display the data. However, later on when we show the interactive part of it, you're going to see that we don't really want the pivot table on the same sheet, because then we'd have too much information. So it's a nice idea where we can put it onto a different sheet, and you could even hide the sheet if you don't want it to be shown within your own management reports. You could hide it there. But for now, let's just create a new pivot chart over here and we'll see how we add that. So we're going to go back to data. We're going to say insert over here, insert pivot table again. And again, we're going to say this is a new worksheet, and we're going to call this one customer segment. So we'll just call it that for now. And we're going to see a little bit later why it's so important to actually label your sheet names. Okay, so we've got a customer segment. And again, now if we go down, we'll see that we have our different customer segments. And in this case, we actually wanted our profit by customer segment. So we're going to choose that as values. Again, you're pretty used to seeing your number format over here. So we're going to actually choose that. And we've got our different number formats now for our customer segments. Now what we're going to do is we're going to choose our pivot chart over here. And we're going to choose our column, choose our clustered column option. Click OK on that. And we've got our chart now showing this information on our customer segment. So what we're going to do is we're just going to delete our legend, and we're going to give this a title. Okay, so we've got a title for our chart. Let's just clear a couple of these, and let's remove those buttons as well so it's a little bit bigger. And we just go to Analyze, Field Buttons over here, and we've got a profit by customer segment. Okay, so again, we're going to use the design option, our move chart, and we're going to place this now into our dashboard and click OK. So now that we've got it in our dashboard, we can just resize that, add it to our dashboard. Okay, there we go. We now got it in our dashboard. So our dashboard is now starting to take shape. We've got our key metrics, we've got our top 10 customers, we've got our sales by year and quarter, and our profit by customer segment. Now, at the moment though, this is all static information. This shows me what is happening in my total data set. But what happens if I want to see it by different dimensions or different methods? So what I do for that is I use an option called a slicer. So a slicer is a really great interactive way of being able to change my information. So if I choose my key metrics over here, and I'm just going to close my pivot table fields, just so we've got a bit more space on the side over here. In my pivot table tools under Analyze, I get this option called Insert Slicer. So when I say Insert Slicer and I say that I want to use, say, my customer state as an option, I could open that up, and we're going to make it a little bit wider over here. So over here now you see that we've got a list of our customer states. There's quite a lot of them. But at the top I get something called the Slicer Tool Options. And what I can do is change my number of columns. So in this case I'm actually going to create it as 4 columns. And you can see now it's much easier to see all the different customer states. So now that I've got that nicely summarized, you'll also see on the Slicer Tools options over here, you get different coloring schemes that you can try. So if you wanted to play around with that, you could. Okay, we're going to use that one for now. Now when I click on this, you'll see that when I choose Alabama, then it actually now changes my total matrix to reflect only Alabama customer state. Now, the same would be true of any of the other customer states that I start to click on. However, you'll notice that none of the other information is actually changing at this time. So I could say that all of this, but it's not really useful if I'm not changing my whole dashboard. Okay, over here I've got an ability to take my filter off, and you can see it resets to the entire data set. So now here's the really nice trick over here is how do we get the slicer now to actually work with all of our information. And on your Slicer Tool options, and this one we've been using just for our columns, you'll see that over here we have a report connections. And when I click on report connections, it will then show me all the pivot tables that I've actually got in this worksheet. So you can see that I've got the pivot table names, but then I've also got the sheets where they are. And this is why it's often a good idea to change the name of your sheet so you actually know which sheet you're actually working with. In this case, I've only got 4 pivot tables in the entire worksheet, so it's pretty easy to figure out which pivot tables I want the slicer to now be able to filter. Now, because each of these graphs down here are now showing the results of the pivot table, when I filter the pivot table, the pivot chart will show the results of that. So when I click OK here, and I go to Alabama now, you'll see that everything is actually changed. So I've got my key metrics, I've got my top 10 customers by sales for only Alabama. I've got my sales by year and quarter, my profit by customer segment, only for Alabama. And you'll see that as I choose my different customer states, this becomes totally interactive with the fact of choosing these. So this is really powerful and a really easy way to make your different dashboards very interactive. Now you can have more than one slicer within this. So if we were to add a new slicer and I was to click back onto a pivot table, I could go to Analyze, I could say Insert Slicer. And let's say, for example, I wanted my product subcategories. Now you'll see that it just creates now another slicer. And again, I could use the same theory, make it a little bit wider. Let's use, say, 4 columns on this one again. And there we go. Now we got our different product subcategories also. And all I would do is the same thing. I'm just going to report connection as over here. Make sure all my pivot tables are selected. And now if I chose a product subcategory, you would see then it would also then filter my entire dashboard for that product subcategory. Now, because I've got 2 slicers on here, I can actually use a combination. So if I wanted to do appliances and I wanted to see in New York, I can now select the 2 together, and you can then see how the 2 work together. Okay, so very easy to add more than one slicer. You just link it to your pivot tables like we did previously. I'm going to delete that. Just press the delete button. I'm going to keep the customer state as it is. The last step in your dashboard design is really the presentation side. So at the moment, if we look at this, well, quite honestly, it looks very much like Excel. So it's quite impressive, but it looks like Excel and you might want to change that. Now, as we've already shown, you can actually choose your sheets, right click on your sheets. And if you've got information like this you don't want to show, you can hide these sheets. But I'm going to keep it as it is at the moment. I just wanted to show you again that we could hide those sheets. Another option is we could remove the additional information over here. So over here we've got grid lines and we've got headers and things. If we go to our view over here, we can remove our grid lines, we could remove our headings, and our formula bar is off already as well. So you see that we now get a nice white background, which really looks good. The other option that really can help with your presentation is the ability to change your ribbon. So you can see over here, I can auto hide the ribbon, show tabs and commands. In this case, I'm going to just show tabs. And what it's going to do is it's going to keep this upper menu. However, with yours, if you use auto hide ribbon, you'll see that it will go full screen. Now in this case, for me, because of the video screen size, it would go outside where we're recording. But you can try the auto hide ribbon. But I'm going to have show tabs for now. So you can see now we get a much more nicer white background. And when we're doing our presentation now, very easy for us to be able to make this full screen and be able to present that. So I'd just like to say a really big thank you for doing the complete introduction to Excel interactive dashboards. So I hope you've seen that using slicers and pivot tables, we can make some really interesting dashboards very quickly and with no complexity. So if you've enjoyed the video, please make sure to like the video. Also, if you enjoyed this series of videos, please make sure that you subscribe to our channel. We're going to be bringing out more videos in the Complete Introduction 2 series, so please keep tuned in for further videos.